الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Amongst the most important discussions in Islamic jurisprudence is the discussion of zakat, otherwise translated in the English language as the alms or the giving of the poor rate. And indeed, it's an examination which requires an in-depth analysis, for this is a subject which is often misunderstood, and indeed a subject which has been elucidated upon by the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt, especially Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. In that generation of scholars which were produced in the early 2nd century of the religion of Islam, alongside the likes of Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, and Nu'man ibn Thabit, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, Malik ibn Anas, many of the scholars of Islamic jurisprudence sought to elucidate on the concept of zakat. And indeed, the discussion regarding the concept of zakat is a discussion which allows us to delve into the world of Islamic economics, and the idea that the recent credit crunch and the recent recession has made many people in the world today reevaluate their economic ideologies, has made many people in the world today reevaluate what exactly brings them economic prosperity, as in both individuals and on a state level. You find people have begun to reevaluate their spending habits, have begun to reevaluate their understanding of what economic system brings them happiness in their life and happiness in the community as a whole. And you find that many have begun to reassess the economic ideologies that they have taken into their life. There was a period where many had revered the ideology of communism and then found that it didn't necessarily bring them economic prosperity. And then there was a period where many had revered the ideology of capitalism, and again many had felt that it didn't bring them economic prosperity. And therefore you find many in the world today who are asking about Islamic economics. There is a new trend within the financial world of Islamic banking, where people have begun to ask about what is Islam's economic system, in the idea that the religion of Islam claims to be a holistic way of life. It claims to be able to guide you in each and every part of your life, social, political, economic. And therefore you find many in the world today asking whether the Islamic economic system can cure many of the economic problems that society faces today. What is Islam's opinion, for example, on private ownership, on public ownership, on state ownership? What's Islam's opinion, for example, on mortgages and interest rates? These are all issues which are under the Islamic economic system. And therefore you find in the Muslim world today, while we have many students studying economics, studying finance, studying actuarial sciences, we do not have many who have written on the issue. There aren't many leading journal articles on Islamic banking according to Muslims. You don't find many articles in newspapers about Islamic economics, nor do you find many books which elucidate on the concept of Islamic economics. as in the famous Bangladeshi economist Muhammad Yunus is one of a few bright lights who has written on Islamic economics. Because when he examined the Islamic economic system, he sought to examine how it could be applied to today's society. Yet you find other than him, and Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and Mahmoud Taliqani, other than these three scholars, there aren't many who have written on Islamic economics. While we have many today in our youth who are graduating with economic degrees, we are still not having enough who are using their degree to serve the religion. Whereas there are many who are using their degree to serve their pockets. There are many who will use the economic degree to look for the best of banking jobs. And that there is no problem, because you need to earn for this world. At the same time, the degree has to be used in order that you are able to use that degree and elucidate on the concepts which your religion taught. That's why within the school of Ahlul Bayt, there seems to be a major discussion about zakat on the first level, because of the fact that many people come forward and state that our scholars focus more on khums than they do on zakat. In which way, you find many who come forward and state that for years we've been told to pay khums, and we've been ready to pay khums. But on many occasions, people do not tell us about the payment of zakat. Other schools in Islam, there is a major stress on the payment of zakat. That in these other schools you find they are willing to give away 2.5% of their earnings a year. Yet the school of Ahlul Bayt for some reason remains silent on the issue of zakat. And some people come forward and state, why is this when the word zakat is mentioned much more than the word khums in the Quran? Because the word khums is mentioned once in the Quran. Chapter 8 verse 41 clearly mentions وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسًا وَلِلرَّسُولِ. Know that if you're going to acquire something, then 1/5 is for the Lord and for the Prophet, and then the classifications continue. But then somebody says, but the word zakat, I've read it on many more occasions. Whenever I read aqimus salat, what do I read next to it? What is zakat? When I look at khums, I've read it once, chapter 8 verse 41. Whereas when I look at the concept of zakat, I've read it on many occasions. Then why is it that seemingly the scholars of Ahlul Bayt are silent on the issue of zakat? Or why is it that the followers of Ahlul Bayt are uncertain about the payment of zakat? That's number one. Number two, you find a second group who say zakat is one of the furu' ad-din in the school of Ahlul Bayt. As in when you look at the usul ad-din in our school, al-tawheed, wal-adala, wal-nubuwa, wal-imama, wal-ma'ad. When you look at the furu', you see salah, sawm, hajj, zakat, khums, jihad, amr bil ma'ruf, al-nahi anil munkar, al-tawalla, tabarra. Certain people come forward and state that zakat is one of the furu'. Then why is there such a focus on khums and there isn't a focus on zakat? I remember one seemingly Muslim academic coming forward and stating that the followers of the school of Ahlul Bayt, their scholars do not concentrate on zakat because they're more interested in collecting khums than they are interested in collecting zakat. That's a wrong accusation. Why? Because he says that the majority of their highest scholars are sayyids. So these sayyids obviously are more interested in khums than they are in zakat. Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi al-Najaf, is he a sayyid or is he a sheikh? Sheikh Wahid al-Khurasani, is he a sayyid or is he a sheikh? When you come Sheikh Ishaq Fayyad al-Najaf, is he a sheikh or is he a sayyid? To bring about such accusations is to point to the truth of being something quite juvenile. A person of scholarship would not bring such an accusation. But the point remains that we focus a lot of our discussions on khums and hardly any of our discussions on zakat. Therefore, what is the opinion of the school of Ahlul Bayt when it comes to the issue of zakat? I'd like to examine this in a number of stages. Number one, what is the way zakat is defined in the Holy Quran? And does it always refer to an obligatory payment or not? That's number one. Number two, the obligatory zakat. What are the areas in our life on which zakat is payable? And how are these areas stipulated? Number three, if I do not pay zakat to the Khalifa of my time, do I deserve to be killed or not? Number four, and very importantly, why does the word zakat always follow the word salah in the Quran? What is the point that is being made here? Right. Number five, what are the other economic issues which Imam al-Baqir dealt with? And number six, what was the greatest form of charity in the eyes of Imam al-Baqir? And how did it relate to the events of the 10th of Muharram? Let's examine this and dissect the topic in depth. When you look in the Holy Quran, many people assume that when you look at the word zakat, that it refers to a 2.5% payment you have to make on your earnings in the year. Whereas the reality is, when you look in the Quran, the first usages of the word zakat have absolutely nothing to do with an obligatory payment. The first time the word zakat is used in the Holy Quran is where God takes you to the root meaning of the word zakat. Because the root meaning of the word zakat is what? Is to purify. As if you were to look at the etymology of the word zakat, the etymology of the word zakat is to purify something. As in, for example, if I talk about zakat, I may talk of, for example, zakat when it comes to my wealth means I'm purifying my wealth. Zakat when it comes to my soul, it could mean that I'm purifying my soul. The first usage of the word zakat within the Holy Quran referred to the idea of purifying one's nafs. In which way? If you look within the Holy Quran, when the word zakat was used, God wanted us to understand that the highest level the human being can reach in their life is when they are able to purify their soul. He showed us this through the usage of the word zakat in two avenues. Number one, in the avenue of Surah Al-Shams. Number two, in the avenue of Surah Al-A'la. You know, in Salat al-Eid, the Eid prayer, the Imam is asked to recite two surahs after Surah Al-Fatiha. The first rak'ah recite, for example, Surah Al-Shams. The second rak'ah recite Surah Al-A'la. Somebody asks the question, why does he have to recite these two surahs at the end of the Eid of the holy month of Ramadan? Because these are the two surahs which discuss the idea of zakat al-nafs or tazkiyat al-nafs. Because at the end of the holy month of Ramadan, I'm meant to be a pure human being. I'm meant to be a pure human being, and the idea that I'm meant to have stopped all of those things which I do throughout the year. I'm meant to have stopped those relationships, which I might get back to after Ramadan, but in Ramadan I act a bit more religious. I'm meant to have purified my soul. You find in Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions clearly, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? By the soul and the one who perfected it. He showed it the right way, he showed it the wrong way. Successful is the one who purifies his soul. Look at the usage of the word zakat. What's the usage? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who is able to purify his soul. Likewise in Surah Al-A'la, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the word zakat in its first meaning in the Quran? He states to us, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Successful is the one who has achieved tazkiyat al-nafs in his life. That's why in the religion of Islam, the highest level is for the human being to know themselves. To know that in their life, they face a battle. Their anger is taking them one way, their imagination is taking them another, their desires are taking them a third way. Amir al-Mu'mineen in a quite beautiful line of poetry states, دواؤك منك وما تبصر وداؤك فيك وما تشعر أنت الكتاب المبين الذي بأحرفه يظهر المضمر أتحسب أنك جرم صغير وفيك انطوى العالم الأكبر. What does he say? The cure is within you, but you do not see. And the disease is within you, but you do not sense. You are the open book who with your letters the unseen can be seen. Do you think you are something small when the whole universe exists within you? The whole universe exists within you, the human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered a trust to all his creation. He offered a trust to the mountains, for example, to the angels. None of them were willing to take on what you took on. If you are able to purify that soul of yours, then that universe has to be a servant of yours. Hence Amir al-Mu'min says, مَنْ عَرَفَ نَفْسَهُ فَقَدْ عَرَفَ رَبَّهُ. The one who knows himself, knows his Lord. That's why on the 10th of Muharram, you find Abu Fadl in his last lines of poetry. Before he was killed, by the time they had struck his left hand, all he's speaking to is himself, nobody else. It's as if what's alive is the self. يا نفس لا تخشي من الكفار وابشري برحمة الجبار مع النبي السيد المختار قد قطعوا ببغيهم يساري. Ya nafs la takhshay min al-kuffar means ourselves, don't be scared of these disbelievers. Be ready for the mercy of the powerful one. and you're going to be alongside the Prophet of God. Now they have come and cut off my left hand. Therefore, the first usage of the word zakat in the Quran was a reference to the purification of the soul. The second usage of the word zakat in the Quran, again, had absolutely nothing to do with obligatory 2.5% payment. The second usage of the word zakat in the Quran was a recommended payment which you give to other creations of God. What did this mean? Notice the second usage of zakat in the Quran highlighted a concept which is used and known as sadaqah. In the Quran, Allah interchanges the word zakat and sadaqah. The second type of usage of the word zakat is when the human being gives away from their earning, even though it's not been made an obligation on them. What do I mean? Sometimes we, the human being, if we didn't have obligations on us, we would never give away from ourselves. As in, we can be the stingiest people on this earth. We love taking, but we hate giving. And if we were given the choice, we would not give to anybody and keep the whole earth for ourselves. You find that the religion of Islam came forward and said that we want to eradicate a disease of the soul that may affect you. What is it? The disease of greed. That's a disease we want to eradicate. And the way we want to eradicate it is by asking you to give away from yourself charity, even though you're not obligated to. Notice Amir al-Mu'min says when people worship God, there are some who give away from themselves because they fear hell. There are some who give away from themselves because they want heaven. There is a third group of people who are this category, who give away from themselves because they say it doesn't matter if there isn't a heaven or hell. What matters is that I know I have helped another human by giving away. The second usage of the word zakat in the Quran was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighting that human being who can give away from themselves, even though I have not made it obligatory, is the highest human being in my eyes. That's why the prophets of God before our holy prophet, was zakat 2.5% earning? Was it part of their sharia or no? No, it wasn't. It wasn't part of their sharia that they came to the people and they said 2.5% of your earnings you have to give away to the poor. Then why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say through Prophet Jesus that Jesus says, I've been ordered by my Lord to give zakat? As soon as Prophet Jesus was born, Prophet Jesus, as soon as he was born, what did he say? In chapter 19, قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا. He says that I am a servant of God. He has given me the book and given me prophethood. And he has enjoined upon me praying and paying the poor rate. Prophet Jesus in his time, was it wajib for him to pay 2.5% of his earnings in zakat? No. So why is it the first words he recites from the cradle? وَأَوْصَانِ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. He has enjoined upon me salah and zakat. Which zakat? Not wajib zakat on Prophet Isa, no. But that I as a prophet of God should be an exemplar. That when I see the seesaw in the world's economics where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, I should be an exemplar that whatever little I've earned, I should be willing to give away to those who are not well off. That when Allah told the Prophet Jesus that I have enjoined upon you zakat, not that from a certain stipulated amount of earning he has to give away from himself. No, that you as a human being should cultivate in yourself that gift of giving away to other humans, even though God hasn't made it obligatory on you. That's why arguably the greatest moment in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen was when he gave away zakat even though it wasn't wajib on him. When you find many who come forward and say, when you say Ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah, when you make this statement, what's the backup for this statement? We reply the Quran. We say, what do you mean? We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirmed that his wilayah, his authority, was to be shared out to certain creations. Where in chapter 5 verse 55, God's absolute guardianship was shared out. It was shared out to a prophet and to a man who performed an action in his ruku' where Allah wanted to praise him for that act. When was this? That poor man in the mosque in Medina looks around and asks for someone to give him some charity. But nobody is willing. Why? Because a Muslim, if you tell him recommended, he says you go speak to someone else. When you tell him wajib, he does it straight away. Why? Because we become dogmatic. We become robotic. The heart has gone. Originally, the religion was for the heart, not dogma only. The religion was that a human being gives from themselves, not because the law says, but because they recognize there's an inherent benefit in it. What happened was when this poor man was asking, the Muslim said, is it the wajib zakat? No, then I don't need to give anything. He went round to everybody, nobody gave. He prayed in the mosque of Rasulullah. And where better a place for your dua to be answered than in masjid of Rasulullah? He prayed in the mosque of Rasulullah, Ya Allah, I have come to the mosque of your Prophet and I have asked for some charity. Ya Allah, answer my dua through one of these creations. If a mu'min in his salah is praying the way salah should be prayed, then salah becomes a mi'raj for him. Because Rasulullah himself said, salah is the mi'raj of the mu'min. Salah is when you start escalating heights of spirituality, to the extent that Sayyid al-Khumaini, may Allah bless his soul, has a beautiful line where he states that if a human being has truly prayed properly, by the time he's doing his tashahhud, he should be annihilated, he should be finished. Some of us, by the time we're doing our tashahhud, we're thinking about tomorrow's meeting and who's coming home and so on. But the true person in his salah is someone who's reached that level where he has escalated the heights of spirituality. When he asked for that dua, one man was in his salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to answer his dua, but through the ring of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen, while he was in his ruku', he pointed out that finger, and that finger had a ring on it. The man recognized straight away. What was the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib at that moment? Ali ibn Abi Talib, do you know why Allah passed his wilayah to Ali ibn Abi Talib? Because that was the moment Ali ibn Abi Talib recognized the needs of his Lord and his creation at the same time. That's ultimate perfection. When you are able to understand the needs of your Lord and the creation at exactly the same time, the Quran revealed the verse. Mark the verse, Surah 5 verse 55. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ راكعون. One of the scholars who was debating me on this issue one day said to me, the verse doesn't mean anything. I said to him, why? He said, Allah is just saying that I am your wali, the Prophet, and all the believers, those who pray and those who do ruku'. I asked him, is ruku' part of salah? Is ruku' part of salah? Yes. So why does Allah say, يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ يُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةِ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ? There must have been a separate action in ruku'. Otherwise, ruku' is part of salah. Why do you need to mention separately that there was an action in ruku'? There was definitely an act which took place in ruku'. Allah has already said, يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. Salah, part of it is ruku'. I don't need to mention the ruku'. But the fact that Allah mentioned the ruku' separately meant that Ali ibn Abi Talib had performed an act. Even Dr. Wahb al-Zuhayli in his tafsir of the Quran says, it's either Abu Bakr or Ali ibn Abi Talib. We do not mind. We accept other schools in Islam have their opinion, we have ours. But what we want understood is definitely someone gave away his ring. Be it Abu Bakr, be it Ali ibn Abi Talib, we want the admittance that someone gave away his ring. Therefore, the second usage of zakat in the Quran is to give away recommended charity. The third usage of zakat in the Quran is in reference to the wajib zakat that you pay from your earnings at the end of the year. When was this wajib zakat revealed? It was revealed in Medina. Sometimes people ask, how come salah, saum, zakat is all in Medina, but tawheed is all in Mecca? Notice in the Quran, all the verses in Mecca begin, Ya ayyuhan nas. In Medina, all of them begin, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. In Mecca, you're trying to make them believe in God. In Medina, you're trying to make them show their love for God. In Mecca, you're trying to actually make them believe that, you know, this idol which I can break tomorrow is not something I should worship. In Medina, you then establish the way they show their obedience to God. When zakat was revealed in Medina, the verse was revealed, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. Take from their wealth a certain amount of obligatory payment which purifies them and makes them better human beings. Rasulullah came forward. He said, Allah has revealed to me that there has to be a certain payment which is obligatory on your earnings. The Sahaba said to me, Ya Rasulullah, on which earnings? He said, on 3 categories of earnings. Which categories? The first category on cattle. The second category on crops. The third category on coins. So cattle, for example, sheep, cows, camels. Crops, for example, wheat, barley, raisin. Coins, the gold and silver coins. The idea was that you had to pay your zakat, 2.5%, on these following earnings which are being stipulated. Somebody then asked, Ya Rasulullah, when we pay zakat, where does it go? It's a good question. As if I'm going to pay my money, where is it going to go? I don't want it to go into the bank balance of a human being who goes and buys himself a big castle. I want to make sure that when I give this, I want to have accountability in the economic system. Because a religion which doesn't have accountability in its economic system is being led by corrupt human beings. Whereas a religion which gives you accountability in its economic systems are people who are leading it in the proper way. They give you receipts, they give you invoices, they say this is the way we're spending your money. When Rasulullah came, he said to them, your money which you give, we're going to give it out from the treasury of the Muslims. They said to him, for who? He said, للمساكين, الفقراء المساكين العاملين عليها المؤلفة قلوبهم الرقاب الغارمين ابن السبيل. He said we're going to give it to the needy, to the poor, to the widows. We're going to give it to the people who work for the government as their expenses. We're going to give it to those who've just joined the religion of Islam. We're going to give it to those who are lost on a journey. We're going to give it to those who have an outstanding debt. We're going to help them with the debt. Notice Islamic economics sought to build a central treasury. A treasury where if there is poverty within the society, that central treasury, when the people pay, the central treasury has a map in front of them. Somebody is needy, take out from the treasury, give to them. Somebody is a widow, take out from the treasury and give to them. Somebody has an outstanding debt, take out from the treasury and give to them. Because as Muhammad Yunus says in his book, Creating a World Without Poverty, there has to be two incentives. One for the giver to the poor and the second to the poor themselves. The giver to the poor who works in the treasury, his incentive, you have to tell him, if those poor people you give, if they are able to open their business, then we will give you a bonus. Not just give to the poor, no. Let's see the results of who you gave. And to the poor themselves, you give a certain amount from the Islamic treasury. You tell them, listen, we'll give you this amount, open yourself a shop. If you're doing well with that shop, we'll get you a second shop. The idea was that the treasury was a central economic base. When Rasulullah stipulated this, you had some people who came. Rasulullah said to them, you have to now go around and collect the zakat. They said, very well, Rasulullah. They went to collect the zakat. The Quran revealed the verse highlighting the different types of reactions when Muslims were told to pay zakat. In particular, one person by the name of Tha'laba. Tha'laba used to pray right behind Rasulullah in the front row. Always be careful of the people at the front row. He used to pray right behind Rasulullah in the front row. And when he used to pray behind Rasulullah in the front row, Dhuhr he's there, Asr there, Maghrib there, Isha there, Fajr there, every Salah he's there. After every Salah he'd come to Rasulullah and say, Ya Rasulullah, would you pray to Allah to make me rich? Rasulullah would say to him, listen, Tha'laba, ask for another dua, I'll pray to Allah. Okay, no problem. The next time, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha is there every time. He comes to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, would you pray to Allah to make me rich? He said to him, Tha'laba, I'm telling you, being rich doesn't mean that you'll have no problems in life. Sometimes on the contrary, the more money you have, the more headaches you have. And look at me, I am your prophet. But have I asked Allah when I can ask Allah? As in if I were to ask Allah, would Allah reject me? No, He wouldn't. Just trust me. He said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I want to make sure that you pray for me. Rasulullah said, very well, we'll pray for you. Rasulullah prayed for him, this person who used to come Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Jum'ah. He wouldn't miss any of the Salah. All of a sudden, he would only turn up for Jum'ah. People were saying that he used to come for Jama'ah all the time. Now he only turns up for Jum'ah. The people said he must be busy. It turned out that certain wealth had come to him. Rasulullah's dua had been answered. Certain wealth had come to him. The narration states that Rasulullah would ask about him, where is he? They'd say he's busy in his farm now. Even Jum'ah he started to miss. And it's affected more than him. There are some today, the way they chase the world, they'll forget these prayers. And you find that what happened was, Rasulullah, when the law of zakat came, he said, go to Tha'laba. He asked me to pray to Allah. And he said to me that, Ya Rasulullah, if you pray for me, I promise I'll give my money back to charity. You know how people play the lottery? He says to you, I swear, if I win the lottery, half my money is going to go to charity. They never win, of course, but they always make that point, that half of our money will go towards charity. This Tha'laba promised this. Rasulullah sent the tax collectors for the zakat. They came to Tha'laba. Salamu alaykum, alaykum salam. We have come with something. He said, what is it? Islam has revealed a law by the name of obligatory zakat. 2.5% of your earnings on your wheat, on your barley, on your raisin, on your cows, cattle, sheep, and on your gold and silver coins that you have. He looked at them and he said, and I've got to pay 2.5% on these? They said to him, yes. He said, let me think about it. Tell Muhammad I'll get back to him. They went to the person next door. They said to him at that moment that there has been an obligatory tax which has to be paid. He said, what is it? They said to him, zakat. What is it on? Wheat, cattle. He mentioned everything. The person said, who's this for? Rasulullah? Yes. For his treasury? Yes. Take everything you want, because Rasulullah deserves more than what I have. Do you see the difference? There's one who Allah has given, but he becomes more stingy. There's another Allah has given, he's so confident Allah's given him that much, he thinks, well, if I'm going to give away more, he's going to give me more. At that moment, that Tha'laba, when the people came back to Rasulullah and said that Tha'laba rejected giving you, the verse in the Quran was revealed, Surah 9, verse 75. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ عَاهَدَ اللَّهَ لَإِنْ آتَانَا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ لَنَصَّدَّقَنَّ وَلَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. There are those who make a covenant with their Lord, that if their Lord gives them, they will give away from themselves. فَلَمَّا آتَاهُمْ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ بَخِلُوا بِهِ. But when he gives them, they become even more stingy. That Tha'laba, he had the chance to pay the zakat, he wouldn't. When Abu Bakr became Khalifa, Tha'laba wanted to pay. Abu Bakr said to him, go away from me. You had the chance to pay to Rasulullah and you didn't. I don't want your money. Umar ibn al-Khattab became Khalifa. Take your money away from me. Uthman ibn Affan became Khalifa. Take your money away from me. That Tha'laba died without being able to pay zakat to anyone. Because that original flavor of the zakat, when he could have paid it, later on he was paying for a show, not sincerity. He wanted to pay to show the people that no, I've changed. They rejected every time he tried to pay. Therefore you found that the idea was given, that 2.5% had to be paid from your earnings from these. Somebody comes and says, okay, you mentioned crops. I don't have any wheat, or I don't have any barley, I don't have any raisin, but I have a big rice factory. Therefore, can I pay zakat from the rice factory? It was a question posed to our sixth Imam. That Muhammad al-Tayyar came to him and he said, oh Imam, we have a great amount of rice being produced. But the rice isn't stipulated in Islamic law that rice has to be paid zakat on. It's not stipulated. Imam said to him, is it stipulated or it isn't? He said, no, it's not. He said, therefore you don't pay on it. He said, Allah has stipulated certain products. If you have those products, you pay zakat on them. Don't come and bring me a product like the product. No. The product itself, if you have it, you pay 2.5% on it. If you don't have it, you don't pay anything on it. That's why you find some of the school of Ahlul Bayt come forward and state, I want to give 2.5% zakat. Why is it only our brothers give? I want to give. Give. You're more than welcome. If you want, give 50. If you want, give 100. Give 100. No problem. But don't say I'm giving the wajib zakat. Say I'm giving the recommended zakat. Don't play with Allah's law of Sharia. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he tells you wheat and barley and he tells you raisin, you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know the agriculture of this earth you live on? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the exact agriculture. Someone will then come and say, well that means I don't have any zakat to pay. If you don't have zakat to pay, then number one, give a lot more of the mustahab zakat. That's number one, because what, there isn't poor people on the earth? There are people in villages in India who don't know when their next drop of water will come. There are people in villages in Africa who the iftar for the whole village, for the whole month of Ramadan, $60. And ask yourself, what things have we spent money on for $60? That you can pay. Or number two, if you're not paying zakat, then know that there are other Muslims in the world today who have to. What, there isn't Muslims in Iraq today? There isn't Muslims, for example, in Kuwait. There isn't Muslims in Saudi Arabia or in other Middle Eastern countries or in East Africa or in India. Do they not have agriculture? Do they not have pastures and do they not have fields which they have to pay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear in the Sharia. If you own the following products, then you have to pay 2.5% of your earnings on them. If you don't own these products, don't come and introduce to me new products. We've stipulated the law, that's the law. Someone then comes and asks the question, but zakat is mentioned 100 times, khums is mentioned once. Just because something is mentioned more than the other, it makes it more important? The law of leaving a will in Islam is mentioned in one verse in the Quran. Does that mean that now salah has become more important than the law of the will in Islam? Sawm is mentioned only once in the Quran as it being obligatory for you. It's mentioned in other conditions, but the obligatory verse is one verse. Does that mean that Sawm is now not as important as anything else because there's only one verse? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether a verse is mentioned 100 times or once, they are of equal importance. Someone then comes to ask, why is it that whenever I read a verse in the Quran it says, Aqimu salat, atu zakat. Aqimu salat, atu zakat. It's not because Allah is saying zakat is that important and you have to pay it and it's obligatory. No. It's Allah is saying that the balance in the life of a Muslim human being is that they have an understanding of the rights of their Lord over them and their rights of the fellow creations over them. Salah is Allah's right over me. Zakat is the fellow creation's right over me. Your balance in this world is that there are times Allah has rights over you, there are times other human beings have rights over you. When Allah mentioned Aqimu Salat Atu Zakat, Allah was mentioning clearly that there is a balancing act to be performed. That's why when you debate between the schools today, when there is dialogue between the Ja'fari school and the Hanafi school and the Maliki school and the Shafi'i school and the Hanbali school, they have their differences of opinion and fiqh on the issue. And a difference of opinion and fiqh between Muslim scholars is nothing for us to be scared of. Rather, it highlights the diversity of the religion of Islam and its jurisprudence, the openness of the jurisprudence, and the fact that the Muslim scholars can come together. Other schools in Islam say, for example, zakat is wajib on all types of gold and silver. We say no, only on the coins. Others come and say zakat is wajib on all currencies. We say if the currency is transferred into gold and silver, then it becomes wajib on you. Some say, well, the currency is being substituted today. Gold and silver, their substitute is the currency. We reply in the school of Ahlul Bayt that a substitute indicates that a loan might have been taken from somebody who owns something you don't, and therefore zakat cannot be taken from that person who owns something which you don't, if you've just taken it as a loan. Somebody comes and says, well, we can make the currencies into gold and silver. Making the currencies into gold and silver still doesn't indicate that it's your possession. All it indicates is that you've changed one currency to another, but you don't even know the original value of the notes you had in the beginning. What are we trying to say? We're trying to say that in legal terminology, it's not as clear as some people make it. When Allah stipulates that zakat is paid on these 9, you stick to those 9. You don't come and say that no, this can substitute that and that can substitute this. If it's stipulated, you work on that stipulation. That's why when you come to Imam al-Baqir in his time, there was a great amount of discussions on Islamic economics. Zakat was one of the discussions. A second was the discussions on Islamic coins. Do you know the first Muslim coin was formed by Imam al-Baqir? The first coin in the religion of Islam originated from Imam al-Baqir. Because in those days you had, when it came to the coinage, the Romans used to be in charge of what? They used to be in charge of the coins. The Egyptians used to be in charge of notes. The Romans on their coins, they used to write the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, the Umayyad Khalifa, who was in charge at the time, suddenly found out that the Egyptian Christians had started also writing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit on their notes. Abd al-Malik, because he knew that most of Egypt was Muslims, he came and said, hold on. The Romans are in charge of the coins, okay. But you Egyptians, you're Muslims, you're in charge of the notes. Why is it that the Trinity is on here? The Roman emperor, when he found out, he wrote to Abd al-Malik. He said to him, listen to me. If you have an intention of changing the notes, I will not allow you to use any coins anymore. And on top of that, I will make a coin abusing Rasulullah. Abd al-Malik, when he heard this, he thought to himself, what am I meant to do? As in, they're going to make a coin of using Rasulullah? He asked, who's the best person to give me an answer on this issue? They said to him, Muhammad bin Ali, call him. When they called Imam al-Baqir came. Abd al-Malik said to him, I have an issue. He said, what is it? He said, the Romans are in charge of the coinage, and the Egyptians are in charge of the notes, and we rely on the Romans for the coins, but the Romans have found out our difference of opinion with the Egyptians when it comes to the notes. Imam al-Baqir looked at him and said, there's a simple solution. He said, what is it? He said, start producing your own coins. Why rely on the Romans anymore? You produce a coin on one side, La ilaha illallah, on the other, Muhammad Rasulullah. As simple as that. We do not need to rely on them anymore. Tell him that we will start producing our own coins. In 1988, in an exhibition in London, in the British Museum, they had a coin. Underneath it said, the first Islamic coin from the Umayyad period, started by Imam al-Baqir. Salawatullah. Therefore, that was the second economic issue that Imam had to deal with. The third economic issue that Imam had to deal with was what? Was the beauty of earning in the religion of Islam, a lawful living. Today in the world you have some Muslims who rely on government paychecks. Why? Because they think the government will pay for me anyway, so I don't need to go out and work. Muhammad bin Munkadir says, in the hottest day in Medina, I'm walking, I see a man, when everybody else is at home, he's plowing the fields and plowing and plowing. I thought, who is this man who is chasing the dunya? I came towards him. When I tapped him, he turned around. It was the grandson of Rasulullah, the great grandson. I looked at him and said, oh, great grandson of Rasulullah, you are chasing the dunya? You are the one who sits out here in the heat? He said, do you not know that I would be happy if I died in this position? Because number one, I would be dying in a state of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because there are 70 levels of worship, and the first is to earn a lawful living in Islam. Number two, I would die in a state where I am not begging anybody. Rather, I am earning my own living. Notice that the Imam established a principle in Islamic economics. You don't sit at home and rely on the paychecks of a government. Whatever work you perform is a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number two. Number three, Fadak of the land of our grandmother Fatima was given back to Imam al-Baqir. Given back to Imam al-Baqir by the Umayyad Khalifa Umar bin Abdul Aziz. As we know, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, two feats he achieved in his life. Number one, he stopped the cursing of Ali ibn Abi Talib on the pulpits. Number two, he returned Fadak back to Imam al-Baqir. Yet Imam al-Baqir done something quite beautiful with the concept of zakat. Do you know what he did? He changed the whole philosophy of zakat and said, zakat isn't just monetary. Sometimes a smile may be zakat. A smile is a form of charity. Sometimes giving away knowledge is a form of zakat. Do you know what a smile is? When someone comes up to you, your name is Baqir, he says, Baqar, how are you? Baqar means what? Surah al-Baqarah. What does that mean? Cow. He came to Imam al-Baqir and he said to him, cow, how are you? When he said that to him, Imam al-Baqir looked at him and he said to him, my name is Baqir, not Baqar. He said to him, I heard your mother was a slave girl. He said, there is no shame in my mother being a slave girl, for Ismail's mother was a slave girl. He said to him, I heard your mother was of dark complexion. He said again, Allah creates people then. He then looked at him and he said, I heard your mother had an abusive tongue. Imam looked at him. This is true charity. You know, sometimes you can give the whole money to the world, but when you can't smile to people, people won't buy you for a penny. They won't buy you at all. The Imam at that moment, what did he do? He looked at him and he said to him, if my mother is truly abusive, I ask you to ask Allah to forgive her. And if my mother isn't abusive, then I will ask Allah to forgive you. Isn't that the greatest charity you could ever be given? Is there a charity better than these beautiful words of the Imam? How many of you, if someone abused your mother and you claim to be a follower of Ahlul Bayt, you claim to be a follower, not you are. I don't think any of us could say we are. We're trying to be. That's what the definition should be. If anyone abused our mother, you may find some of us turn around with the worst of language. Imam simply looked at him and said, if you are right, then may Allah forgive her. If if you are wrong, I'll ask Allah to forgive you. That's a form of zakat when you are able to smile in the face of rudeness. Another form of zakat when you are able to give away knowledge. There is no zakat like knowledge. There is no charity like knowledge. His son Ja'far ibn Muhammad says, one day we were walking out of the gathering of Hisham, the Umayyad Khalifa. There was a monk of the Christians sitting down. This monk looked at us. He looked at my father. He said to him, I want to ask you, are you of the followers of Muhammad or of our followers? Imam al-Baqir said, I am of the followers of Muhammad. He said to him, are you a scholar or are you of the ignorant? Imam al-Baqir said, I am not of the ignorant. Doesn't need to say I'm a scholar. I am not of the ignorant. He says to him, I'll ask you a few questions. If you can answer them, then I'll believe in the path of the man you claim you follow. He said, ask me anything you want. He said to him, the first question I'd like to ask you is, what part of the day is neither day or night? He said, the period between dawn to sunrise. He said, what happens to the human in that period? He said, in that period, the human who can't sleep falls asleep, and the one who is ill, his illness is cured. He said, how do you know that? Unless you're receiving some sort of knowledge nobody else has, how do you know that? He said to him, very well. How is it that in your heaven, in your Quran, you claim that the human can eat and eat and eat and doesn't excrete? He said, it's like the baby in its mother's womb. It eats and eats and eats, but doesn't excrete. He said to him, then how do you claim in your Quran you can eat and eat and eat, but it doesn't end? In heaven, you'll eat and eat and eat, but it doesn't end. He said, like that candle which acts as a source of light to others. It continues to give a source of light while it remains strong itself. He said to him that I swear there is no God but God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Notice that form of charity was seen by the Imam, that when you can give away knowledge, that's a great form of zakat. Finally, his greatest form of zakat, in his opinion, was to be given towards those who recite the Masa'ib of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, and those who recite the Marthiyya of Aba Abdullah, those who recite the Noha, the Qasida, those who remember the Sha'air of Imam al-Hussein, the Azadar of Imam al-Hussein. Why? Because Imam, before he died, he came towards Imam al-Sadiq. He said to him, here is 800 dinar. Every year at Mina, at Hajj, I want you to give it to those who recite in memory of my grandfather, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Do you know 120 of the reciters of Imam al-Hussein graduated from the class of Imam al-Baqir? Amongst them Abu Harun al-Makhfuf, amongst them Ja'far Affan. These were the greatest of reciters in the class of Imam al-Baqir. Imam would bring anybody who would remember Karbala. He would sit with him and he'd say to him, I teach you poetry. I'll teach you how to give a majalis, and I want you to be able to recite in this way. Later on, his son Imam al-Sadiq would say, don't just recite in this way. No, recite in the way the people of Iraq recite. Recite in that way to honor the message of Abu Abdullah. Why did Imam al-Baqir have such an attachment? Because Imam al-Baqir was present at Karbala. Imam al-Baqir was 3.5 years old when he was at Karbala. And it's not that he was a child only. In the court of Yazid in Sham, Yazid was standing there. When he was standing there, the narration states to us that when he was standing there, he had the people around him. He had the daughters of Rasulullah chained up in front of him. The narration states that Yazid at that moment asked his advisors. He said to them, what do you think I should do to these ladies in front of me? Notice one thing, that ladies are of different heights. If you have a young girl like Ruqayya and a lady like Sayyidah Zainab, it would mean the chain would be pulled because one is short and the other is a bit taller. He would look at them and he'd say, what should we do? One of his advisors said, kill all of them. A 3.5-year-old called Muhammad ibn Ali stood up and said, oh Yazid, you are worse than Fir'aun in what you've just said. He said to him, why? He said, when Fir'aun was asked, what shall we do to Musa and Harun? Fir'aun asked the people, what do you think we should do? They said, let them go to another town. Whereas you want to kill the granddaughters of Rasulullah. Is that the way you treat the people? And one particular incident got to Imam al-Baqir on the 10th of Muharram, when he'd see his grandfather Abu Abdullah move from one orphan to another, consoling each orphan of the orphans of Karbala. And one particular orphan, Abu Abdullah, found hard to console on the 10th, before the 10th of Muharram. was Hamida, the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil. Because Hamida hadn't known what had happened to her father Muslim. She was alone sitting there on the plains of Karbala, on the way to Karbala. The narration states to us, Muslim bin Aqil, the death that he died was the worst of deaths. Why? Aba Abdullah had a love for Muslim bin Aqil like no other love. Why? Because not only was he his first cousin, he himself in his own words said to the people, إِنِّي قَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنَ عَمِّي وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي. Muslim bin Aqil, when he sent him to Kufa, he said, I have sent to you my brother and my cousin and the trusted one of Ahlul Bayt. Do you know when he says my brother before he says my cousin, it shows you that he didn't see him as his cousin. That was his brother. That's how close he was to him. Yet imagine you are a stranger in a town like Kufa. The narration states to us that Muslim had gone to get the signatures from the people of Kufa. He had gone to lead Salah in Masjid al-Kufa. When he began leading the Salah, there were 30 people behind him. When he finished the Salah, there was only 3. As he was leaving the mosque, there was 1. As he left Bab al-Kinda, there was nobody next to him. Muslim bin Aqil was now a stranger in the town of Kufa, in the city of Kufa. He was moving from one house to another. He didn't know where to sit and he was thirsty. He had no water given to him. The narration states to us that he sat outside the house of a lady. When this lady came out, her name was Taw'a. She came out. When she came out, she looked at him. She said to him, oh man, what are you doing sitting here outside my house? He replied by saying that I am here simply why? Simply because I just want some water to drink. She went in the house to go and get some water. When she went in the house to go and get the water, she came out. She saw her daughter crying and Muslim next to her daughter. She looked at her daughter. She said to her daughter, what has this man said that has made you cry? Has he angered you? The daughter replied, oh mother, he hasn't angered me. The mother said, then what did he say? She said, mother, he said, I am a stranger in this town and I have nobody next to me. The mother looked at him and she said to him, oh man, who are you? He said, Ana Muslim ibn Aqil. I am Muslim ibn Aqil. She said, which Aqil? He said, do you know Ali ibn Abi Talib? She said, yes, of course, that is my Amir, that's my prince. He said to her, that is my uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen. She said to him, woe be to the people, O Muslim, come and enter the house. She said to him, Muslim, if it's my choice, I will offer you sanctuary. But I have a son who may go and report to Ibn Ziyad if he finds out that you are here. The narration states to us her son had come home. Muslim, that whole night he spent in tasbih, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there was a pain inside him. Why? Because he thought, Aba Abdullah thinks these people will help him. But these people are going to leave him. My closest allies, Mukhtar, has been taken to prison. Hani bin Urwa has been killed and I am alone. The narration states that when her son entered, he saw Muslim. He told his mother, who is this? She said, Muslim bin Aqil. He said, you've been keeping Muslim bin Aqil and Ibn Ziyad has offered a reward. He went and he told Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad told Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath, come next to me. I want you to go with the soldiers and I want you to go and capture Muslim ibn Aqil. 300 soldiers came towards the house of Muslim ibn Aqil. When they came towards his house, he thanked Taw'a for the service that she had offered him and for the help that she had offered him. When he came out of the house, they began to attack him from every angle. Imagine Muslim alone attacked by these soldiers of Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath. But as they would attack him, he would defend himself from each attack that they would put towards him. The narration states to us, Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath said that I had to go back to Ibn Ziyad. When I went back to him, I said to him, Ibn Ziyad, give me more soldiers. He said to him, what do you mean? I've already given you that many. He said to him, do you think we are fighting one of the greengrocers of Kufa? We are fighting the nephew of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said to him, I want you to give me more soldiers. He took those soldiers, he went to fight Muslim bin Aqil. On this occasion, they didn't fight Muslim bin Aqil one-on-one. No, do you know what they did? They surrounded him from every angle of the house. They began to pelt Muslim bin Aqil with their stones. every time they'd pelt him with their stones, he would stand up from his position until one of them struck him with a bar and laid him to the ground. The other one came and he pulled him with a rope. One of the poets of Iraq describes this beautifully, that normally when you tie somebody, you normally pull them, but you allow them to walk. They dragged Muslim bin Aqil on the streets of Kufa. Do you know what the poet says? He says it's as if Muslim was sweeping the ground for Sayyida Zainab, that when she'd come to the ground of Kufa, she'd walk on the ground which his body had swept over. The narration state they took him to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. When they took him to the palace, he looked at Ibn Ziyad. He said, I have 3 requests. These 3 requests, they hurt the heart of the human being. He said, my first request is that I have an outstanding loan. I want you to pay it to that person. My second request is that you give me an Islamic burial. My third request is you tell Abu Abdullah not to come towards these people. Ibn Ziyad said to him, as for your first request, we grant it. As for your other 2, we will not grant them. He took him to the top of the castle. Just before he struck him, Muslim called out, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. They beheaded him, his body rolled down on the streets of Kufa. When Sayyida Zainab looked at Abu Abdullah, they were on their way towards Karbala. Abu Abdullah, at this moment he stopped and he called out, Wa alayka salam. Sayyida Zainab looked at him and she said, Abu Abdullah, who are you talking to? He said, Sayyida Zainab, Muslim bin Aqil has just been killed. But there's a problem for Abu Abdullah, and it would be the first problem. How do you go and tell his daughter that her father has been killed? He said to Sayyida Zainab, oh Zainab, I want you to go and call for me Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. Sayyida Zainab went towards Hamida, she brought her towards Abu Abdullah. Abu Abdullah, the first thing he did was that he stroked the head of Hamida. When he stroked the head, he looked at her and he said to her, Hamida, know that my sons are your brothers and my daughters are your sisters. She said to him, Abu Abdullah, has my father died? He said to her, why do you say this? She said, because when you tap the head of a girl, it means that you're tapping the head of an orphan. He consoled her at this moment. I'll leave you with this narration. Sukaina bint al-Hussein, when she saw Hamida had been told the news, she came walking towards Hamida. When she came towards her, she said these memorable words. She said to her, Hamida, I know you have become an orphan. Do not worry, I will look after you now. For when there is an orphan, it's our role to protect you. I asked Sukaina on the 10th of Muharram, when you saw your father's horse returning back to you, but there was nobody riding his horse, who came to strike you on your head, who came to pet you, who came to console you as an orphan when you were alone on those tents? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's grandson, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allow us to be amongst his soldiers and those who follow his message. Raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.